Hey, what's up, friends? Welcome. My name is Alfindeol. Anyone who watches the stream knows that I am probably not the person you want to be taking your PvP advice from. So I've lined up 3 of the best battlers in the world, one of which can actually claim that title. The other 2, well, get good. To say hello to our special guest, first and foremost, the guy on screen, Wild Susan Boyle. Also joining us is somebody who, unfortunately, I have to break it to him. I might spoil a little bit, but camera up is not legal in this meta. But Valor Ash is here nonetheless to give us some idea of what might be good. And last but not least, seriously, not least, the literal reigning world champion, Speedy. I hope you're ready. I'm gonna imagine you doing a drum roll for yourselves where you're at. We would like to introduce you, there we go, there's your drum roll, to the November Silph meta. How about we have a round of applause for the Marsh Cup? Yes, the Marsh Cup. Marsh Cup, the November format, poison types, ghost types, bug types, grass types, and water types, with some pretty familiar faces sitting on the sidelines. No Tropius, no Obama Snow, and no Mega Evolutions. Guys, what do you think? First glance at a brand new meta, what stands out to you this time around?
For those who have been playing through the Season 1 and Season 2 of Silph Arena, and even looking at the GBL featured cup at the end of the month, it may look quite familiar to you. There's going to be the poison ghost types. Those usually come together. The poison and grass types always come together as well, and then the bug and grass types always come together. In the Marsh Cup, most of these actually fit quite well into a Marsh type theme. Although Ghost gives me a little bit of a head scratch, but looking right off the bat, we get a couple, powerhouses that might be relevant in both the Halloween Cup and in this month's Silph Arena Cup, particularly Galvantula and Beedrill.
Yeah, we'll get to take a look. We have some early ratings from PvPoke that we'll be able to show you. Empoleon Dynamite is in the chat as well, and you can, for example, get in there and put the custom meta in. Although I will give Matt credit where credit's due. Actually, there's a lot of credit. Matt deserves credit for basically the entirety of what we do, but he does a lot of tweaks and balance changes that mean that the rankings you'll put in will not look a lot like the rankings we're going to be looking at today. Mason, is there anything that sticks out to you here that you're kind of interested in?
Yeah, it looks to me like it looks very, very, very similar to Toxic Cup, which was a cup that I enjoyed very thoroughly. It's like Toxic Cup, but it has a lot of diversity as well in your options here for the meta. It doesn't look like it's going to be confined to, well, I mean, Galvantula looks like it's going to be a Sherlock in everybody's team, but from there on out, it looks like there's a lot of plenty of viable picks.
Speedy, any thoughts to add to the initial impressions on this meta?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The first 2 guys are 100% spot on. It feels like Toxic Cup plus Ghosts. And you're going to see a lot of things you're going to see in Halloween Cup, just like Chaz mentioned. And then just to piggyback off what Mason said about Galvantula, you see no steals here. There's no ground that's, going to jump out at you. Sorry for the pun, speaking of Galvantula, but there's no steals or grounds that jump out to you. So there's not a lot of resistance here for Galvantula to kind of just run wild.
The thing that was kind of surprising to me, and I'm excited to see how this plays out, there's a lot of really powerful Pokemon available in this meta. And that ban list is really short, and I'm excited to see sort of a lot of the powerhouse players, and whether or not the arena teams put together a format where you know that Azumarill is legal, but maybe a format where Azumarill and Sableye both being legal doesn't actually mean that every team is running Azumarill and Sableye. To me, is a healthy meta. Those are great Pokemon. They're Pokemon that are accessible too. So I like to see them usable so that folks who are just getting their start can play, but also maybe not absolutely dominating the meta. So
yeah,
I'm pretty excited about that.
And I feel like we worried about that in Sorcerer's Cup because we saw a lot of things that countered Azumarill that were available, but Azumarill still found a place in that meta, and I think Azu will still be in this meta as well. One last point I wanted to make, I'm just so excited for this point, is that a lot of these typings favor a lot of kind of less bulky Pokemon. So you could go high attack with ghost types like Haunter and Gengar, things like that, and you can just really shred a team. So I'm really excited for fast-paced matches in this cup.
You're gonna see matchups that go quick, that are exciting. There's definitely a lot of Pokemon here that are legal for the first time. in a Silph tournament as well, which we might get to talk about here in a second. But why don't we take a look at the preliminary rankings? We have basically the top 25 rankings for you. Let's start by looking at the PvPoke top rankings. So page 1, we have the top 25 for you, and as was sort of alluded to, I think a bunch of you identified it right away. That Galvantula all the way up at the top.
It can hit basically the entire cup for neutral. The tricky thing with Galvantula is even if it doesn't win the matchup in front of it, it can certainly throw a wrench in your opponent's team with the debuff.
This is the first time it's been legal since Lunge, right?
Yeah.
And we all know how that works. There's a type missing in this these top 14 too.
I don't see any grass.
Yeah, there's not a single grass. I mean, I guess when you look at the top 14, definitely like pretty hostile to that. We also see a Alolan Marowak who may or may not be getting a new toy, a new bone to throw around soon, but I guess we just have to wait and see. But let's look at page 2 of the rankings and see kind of what the next level of Pokemon looks like. We see a lot of variety up there, but let's see if we can find a grass type. Yeah, I think we found one. I think we found one. Speedy, is there anything that sticks out to you, like as a Pokemon that maybe looks really good against what we saw on page 1?
Like we were just talking about, we see Haunter there clocking in at the second spot here on this page. We also see Ferrothorn. I saw somebody in chat pinging Ferrothorn as like a top pick as well. I think that's yet to be seen. We'll have to see how the meta shakes out. But one pick that I'm really excited for is that rock type right in the middle. And I really like this Pokemon because in our early team building, we identified a core, and I think the other guys found the same core as well. And this Pokemon can actually disrupt that core. So I don't want to say too much, but I just want to give the viewers a little something. I think Cradily is going to be really special in this cup. I
also think we found some of our bulk on page 2. And especially in the water types, you've got Lantern, Mantine, and Lapras all hanging out. There's some bulky water types available, and that doesn't include Azu. All right, let's take a look at the final page of rankings we've got here, and let's see if there's anything else.
Before we go, Excavalier stands out as like the first counter user on the list. We haven't touched on really counter users much, and Excavalier is the first one on the list.
Well, there we go.
Seems like counter users usually find their way into the meta somehow. Excavalier's been always an anti-meta Pokemon. We'll see how it performs in this cup.
Let's see the last page. Finally, your friend is here. Azumarill clocking in at number 30.
It's crazy to see Azumarill so low on the list, but again, like Speedys Chief said, like in every single cup that Azumarill's been allowed in, it's somehow worked its way back into the meta, and so I expect it to be at least a defensive staple on many people's teams, especially because they already have one and they know how it operates.
There is another counter user here, so Toxicroak is also hanging out down here. Anytime like I'm looking at whether or not Toxicroak is gonna be good, I take a look at how much confusion is in the meta.
And we've only got one.
Yeah, we got one, right?
Yeah. Wormadam trash.
So that seems maybe not as hostile as that rating shows. Like, I'm sure its matchups are not clean against a lot of the stuff above here, but like that's feeling pretty good if the only way you're getting blown out is Wormadam trash, which is going to be competing for that bug spot with a bunch of other stuff. Yeah, someone in chat just mentioned this as well. Mudboys are legal in this, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Mudboys are legal in this.
Have we seen one on the rankings yet?
Did we not pass by Swampert?
No.
Is it really so low?
It's really low.
It's
really
low,
serious?
yeah, for no reason. Yeah.
I think Swampert is going to be a little bit better than the rankings show because it's one of like the few electric resists in this cup.
You know, if you take the rankings at first blush, like you're going to sometimes miss important potential elements of your team, but like I'm looking at the stuff above, like Mudboy seems really good, and we haven't seen one in the rankings yet. So
I think against the concentrated meta, like if you sim against the concentrated meta, it would end up a lot higher in the rankings.
Why don't we transition a little bit to team building? I have this wonderful guide provided by the awesome people over at Ghost Stadium. They put this together for us today, and it's sort of a baseline team building guide for you, a simple way to sort of start with a team. You know, you're not necessarily going to end up with this team, but if you're looking for sort of like the metagame simplified for pick 6, this is a really, really great place to look at it. But why don't we actually get into talking about some of your teams? Speedy, I think we're gonna start with you. So I have the team for Speedy here. Walk us through it, Speedy. What did you like about this team? What have you put together for us?
Just as you saw in the Go Stadium graphic, I started with Spider. I'm actually going to give away a few secrets about my team building methodology and the Pokemon I have here. Who knows if it'll be any good? I mean, we might change things in the next couple of days, but I'm going with Spider, and this is why whenever I hunt for key Pokemon like this, I try to find a high attack and a high defense product version, because I think there are going to be so many Galvantulas in this cup. You want to win the mirror. So this Galvantula actually has a 6 attack stat. So that's going to help me to win a lot of the mirrors against some of these 0 attack, high stat product Galvantulas. And then on the other side of that, we have Swampert. I feel like Swampert with its resistance to Galvantula is really going to be solid. You're also going to have that Hydro Cannon to really pressure a lot of other things. There's, very few things, especially if you don't see many other waters, there's going to be very few things that don't take neutral from Hydro Cannon. I think Earthquake is the preferred move as well to affect the steals and some of the dual types. And then outside of that, I built 2 safe swaps into this team. I feel like if you start with the Galvantula and Swampert core, you can have the safe swap of either Frostlass or Sableye. I do think Sableye is the top safe swap here because, I mean, there are just not many things that Sableye can't win a 2 shields against, especially if you get a couple of Shadow Claws in and your opponent is late on the switch. Some people in chat, including Twastel, were talking about Frostlass. I think Frostlass might be dominant in this cup as well. It is a ghost type that Mason didn't mention, but Frostlass and I are not going to take it personally. The Avalanche is going to crush all those flyers and the grass types like Venusaur, and the Shadow Ball is going to do really well against the other ghost types. And then I have 2 flex picks here. I do have Cradily. So Cradily is something I identified early on as being able to break up that Galvantula and Swampert core. It's not going to want to take an Energy Ball, and the Galvantula doesn't want to take the Stone Edge. Swampert doesn't want to take the Energy Ball. So I think Galvantula is going to be really special, and then Trash Wormadam up there as well. I think a Bug Steal is important, and I picked Wormadam over Fortress because I see a lot of poisons in this cup, and I feel like the Trash Wormadam Confusion could be really helpful. Plus, you get a little bit of that fast move pressure with the confusion damage.
I dig the team, and we'll see how your team stacks up against some of these other teams. I think you're going to see some similarities and you're going to see some differences. So I'm excited to see where opinions have diverged. So Mason,
Yes, sir.
what have you got for us? I see some similarities and I see some differences.
Yeah, I wanted to start out with Galvantula because, again, I think it's going to be at the forefront of the meta. And I actually picked up Wormadam Trash. I thought it was going to be good, but then I wanted to adjust my team a little bit because I noticed a strong weakness to Alola and Marowak. So from there, I wanted to pick up some Pokemon that could counter Galvantula itself. Again, in the form of Swampert, generally has positive matchups against Galvantula, unless Galvantula gets a Volt Switch or 2 on it. Sableye, also good at covering Alola and Marowak, and I am running Power Gem on my Sableye right now, just in case I catch a Galvantula, not expecting one. And then I have Venusaur, which also generally has a positive matchup against Galvantula. Basically, every single one of my Pokemon has a generally positive matchup against Galvantula because I didn't want it to be a problem for me. And then I have Alola and Marowak with that Fire Spin to be able to take care of a lot of the grass and steel and bug types that we see in this meta. And I think that Muck, and I went with the 2 dark types here, Muck and Sableye, because they're both fantastic generalists. And as a safe swap, I can swap them in, get a little bit of energy going, and possibly open up a shield advantage, if not a swap advantage for some of my other Pokemon here.
Chaz, I seem to recall your team looking vastly different than some of these other teams. Well, maybe not vastly, but it is missing something.
I don't know. I can't tell.
I don't know.
Looking at my custom meta simulation, I'm actually seeing ghost types at the top and not bugs. So Drifblim is at the very top with Gengar and Alola and Marowak. All 3 of those are semi-bait dependent, but Drifblim is actually the least. A lot of them, its matchups can actually be flipped by one fast move or by baiting, or depending on shield scenario. And I've kind of built the rest of my team on that kind of theory. Galvantula being one of those Pokemon who are very bait dependent, because the longer shield scenarios you're in, the more likely you're supposed to bait and lunge to survive those fast moves to get to the 2 shields. So it gets a little complicated, and I wasn't very comfortable with playing out Galvantula in that way. Right after Drifblim, I tried to look for something that beat Galvantula, because Drifblim is clearly weak to the 1 or 2 electric types in the meta. This is actually going to be a Smackdown Crustle, so I needed a bug counter or an anti-flyer counter. So that was my core pairing to begin with. Cradily, my third pick, for the same reason the other two have it. It's got really good coverage moves, and when I ever build a team, it's always about being able to have some sort of flexibility, whether that's just purely because of coverage moves or whether that's purely because of bulk. And as Speedy was saying, Swampert, pretty OP.
The Swampert just feels like a Pokemon that's like not ranked as high as it deserves, but I bet you as soon as we start seeing usage data, Swampert's gonna claw its way, I guess. Or it doesn't really have claws, it has like weird giant creepy fingers.
It's gonna
Flipper fingers.
It'll hop all the way there.
It'll hop its way, yeah. That checks out. That checks out. But yeah, so
It's interesting that all three of us picked them.
yeah, like that's the I think the one Pokemon. Well, Sableye as well, right? You all have a Sableye on your team. So like those are the two Pokemon that were picked across all three teams, and I think, you know, that checks out based on sort of what we all sort of noticed about the ranks as well. So that's pretty cool. All right, everybody, I think we're gonna call that for tonight's reveal stream. I hope you're excited to check out the Marsh Cup. We didn't even get to talk about this earlier, but you can actually play a Marsh Cup right now on Silph. If you want to get a practice cup in and try this new format, you can. I appreciate everybody again. My name is Alfindeol for, well, Valor Ash, Speediest, and Wild Susan Boyle. We thank you for being here. Cheers, friends.